Good morrow, scholars. Welcome again to Witch and Wizard. I should have had a drink of water before I started reading. Okay, I mentioned in the other video, and I'll mention it here just in case, someone's listening to this and not the other one. I went a few days without uploading anything because some problems at work with another worker. He's made a few threats against me and my well-being. So I was just stressing out about that, and I couldn't bring myself to read and whatnot. But taking care of it, and I'm not too worried. I'm just an anxious person all around. Anyway, we are in chapter 56, Wzard, page 165. Unless I forgot something. But Pfeffer didn't have a chance to find out what weasel tasted like, because just then we all spotted the first thing other than ourselves that we'd ever seen in the Shadowlands. And it was, in fact, a bunch of shadows. They were distant and flickered out of sight as soon as we looked directly at them, but there was no question we didn't want to get any closer. Celia, Susan, and Sasha immediately put their fingers to their mouths, telling us to be quiet. And then, as Susan and Celia just kind of faded into the gray, Sasha did that little commando gesture indicating that we should follow him. I don't know which one that is. Someone let me know down in the comments. I mean, I'm sure I've seen it, but I don't know which would be... Anyway. Where was I? With the weasel clinging to my pants leg and shaking like one of those toys that vibrate when you pull their tails. I know the ones. Where was I? We fell into line behind him and jogged along his string toward what I prayed would be our escape. Sasha, I panted after we'd been running for a minute or so. Did it just get really cold in here or what? It's the lost ones. Among other things, they absorb the heat of the living. So, I said, an uncomfortable realization dawning on me. Does that mean they're close? No more talking, was all he said. But then he stopped. He was holding the end of the string, and there's no portal there. Something broke the string, he said, fear flickering in his brilliant eyes. From behind us, a chorus of moans added an ugly exclamation point to his statement. Then Sasha shook his head like a swimmer trying to get water out of his ears and took off into the fog. Byron, scared past coherent speech, chattered nonsense as we followed. I felt the cold on my back getting more and more intense, and then I did something incredibly stupid. I looked back over my shoulder. 20 or more shadows, crooked, tall, short, bent, hobbling, but all supernaturally fast, were chasing after us, just yards behind us now. They were indistinct, flickering, inconstant, but one of them loomed up and with the most ravenous yellow eyes seemed to see me. That'd be horrifying. And then I did something even more stupid. I stopped and screamed. Whit immediately scooped me up and raced after Sasha. I couldn't stop myself from yelling, and the boys seemed to know it. They didn't even try to shush me. I guess they knew the game was up. Either Sasha would guide us to the portal in time, or he wouldn't. And then we'd find out what exactly it was the Lost Ones did to people. 57. Okay, Sasha said, stopping suddenly. Brace yourselves. My heart leaped. Bracing, I could handle. Getting mauled by soul-eating shadow creatures, not so much. But where was the portal? All I saw was more fog. Was the portal here? Where? Just then Pfeffer, who was, sweet dog, running tail guard several yards behind us, whimpered piteously. Pfeffer! I stopped my own whimpering and yelled as the dog, unable to control herself, raced past toward a patch of fog that I suddenly noticed seemed to be rotating like a sideways whirlpool. She was bleeding. I'm sad. Badly. It looked as if something had gashed her left side with a garden rake. And the fright in her eyes, she looked more like a terrified puppy than a former New Order hellhound. But before I could even think to reach out to comfort her, she was past me and leaping into the swirling vapor, and she was gone. That's our portal, said Sasha. You two next, and be careful, he said. Freeland can be pretty wild. Wild, I could also handle. I'd have happily signed up for a deep jungle camping trip with a pack of hungry jaguars. Anything but this nightmare scene, but I couldn't joke about it to Sasha. For one thing, my teeth were chattering too hard to talk. We were suddenly confronted with a cold so intense it burned, and it was coming from in front of us. One of the lost ones had somehow gotten in between us and the portal. Maybe if pain, hatred, and suffering were mixed in equal parts, somehow given shape, and dipped in black paint, you'd come close to what we saw now. Although there was something disturbingly, hauntingly human about its shadow-filled face, there was no skin, just sort of a flickering, shadowy surface where you would expect to see a forehead, cheeks, nose, and then there were the eyes. No pupils, just slits, yellow-orange, flickering like torches you'd see on the walls of hell. I wanted nothing more than to scream, but I was now officially paralyzed by the frozen air and my terror. I squinted my eyes against the cold and watched helplessly as the other lost ones moved in around us. We were surrounded. Then, and I don't know where he got the strength or the courage, Sasha stepped up toward the one directly in front of the portal, ignoring its clicking finger claws and looking into its deathly yellow eyes. "You got us," he said, "but you'll want me to explain this to you." He reached into his pants pocket and pulled out a piece of paper. "It's a map. With it, I can show you where to find a portal. Not like this one, which won't work for your kind, that can take you out of the Shadowland, away back home." Somehow, the horrible creature seemed to understand and appreciate what Sasha was saying. You know how I am. And then, with a masterful flourish, Sasha crumpled the paper and threw it to the ground, causing the creature to leap after it with an ear-splitting shriek of anger. And then Sasha fairly tackled Wit and me into the portal, where the three of us plunged through. Byron, hateful suck-up weasel, was clinging to my pants leg with all four paws, the insufferable little creep. There was an electric, tingly feeling that got stronger and stronger until my body began to shake like I was being tossed around in the back of a horse-drawn cart barreling down a cobblestone road at 50 miles an hour. And then, suddenly, we were through and outside, it seemed. The initial sensation was of wind, and it felt amazing, as if it were the first fresh air that had touched my skin in years. I got my balance, then stopped in shock and looked around. Oh my goodness. 58. We stood on a dry, rubble-covered hillside. There wasn't much to it, but the sun was up and the sky was blue. After those horrifying minutes in the Shadowland, I was quite simply shocked by how beautiful the real world was. Those lost one things are looking to get out of the Shadowland, huh? Wit asked. Oh, Sasha, as we dusted ourselves off. Yeah, they say that's why they glom onto humans so hard. They want us to help them find a way out. And when that doesn't work, which it never does, they settle for stealing your warmth and eating your flesh. But you gave them the map. Does that mean they can now find their way out into the real world? Wit asked. Well, A, I don't think they can read. B, I'm not sure they could survive in the real world. I sure hope not. And C, it wasn't a map. It was just a list of things I had to do once I got back to the base. So you just made all that up on the spot and fooled those things so we could escape? That's messed up. He shrugged and was going to say something, but just then there was a high-pitched whine in the air. "Incoming!" yelled Sasha and slammed into me, knocking me down. I hit the ground hard, the air whooshing out of me. I gasped like a fish on land as a piercing whistling sound filled my ears, impossibly loud. Then boom. Make that boom! Sorry. I squeezed my eyes shut as the ground shook like an earthquake. Sasha tightened his hold on me, covering my head with his hands. I kind of liked him already. Another boom. More earth-shaking explosions, more trembling, more dust and mud and rubble raining down on our heads. "Whisty!" Wit yelled. I wheezed and gasped. "Wit, Pfeffer," I choked out. I couldn't see very much because of the smoke and dust everywhere. It felt like ages, but the trembling finally calmed and Sasha's weight slowly moved off of me. Where was I? A minute later, it was over. Whatever it was. Whew, Sasha said, grinning. His face was covered with thick dust except for his mouth and eyes. He reminded me of a freaky circus clown. I guess I probably looked the same. Sorry, he told me cheerfully. Didn't mean to squish you like that. It's okay, I said. I've been squished by worse. I struggled to sit up, feeling Byron Hateful's suck-up coiled around my neck like a traitorous mink stole what? Blinking grit out of my eyes, coughing, shaking off the dust, I looked around. What just happened? I asked, finally seeing Wit, and then Pfeffer, and Celia. Bomb, Sasha said, standing up and slapping off the dirt. Everyone okay? I guess we must have stepped out into a war zone. Easy to do. It sounded like this was about as ordinary as making a wrong turn en route to the nearest donut shop. Looking around, I saw half-destroyed buildings on what once must have been a normal city block. Craters in the street were big enough to hold trucks. Rubble and dust were everywhere. Twisted metal, I liked that game. Broken glass, electric wires, and chunks of cement made a dangerous carpet under our feet. Who's bombing us? I asked, trembling all over. So was Byron. The varmint was now riding on my shoulder, clinging to my hair. Get off, I told him. The New Order does bombings every day, Sasha explained. They know some of us kids are squatting here, so they run airstrikes. Then they come looking for us. That's messed up. He shook the hair out of his eyes. Keeps you on your toes, right? Yeah, nothing like a little shock and awe, Wit said in disbelief. Sasha turned serious. We've got to get you to safety right away, guys. Wait, I said. Wit and I need to look for our parents. We'll go it alone. I mean, we're thankful and everything. Celia's and Sasha's eyes met, and for once, Sasha's... why do I have such a problem saying Sasha? Face wasn't so sunny and open. He said, we should talk about that, Red. I glared at Sasha, and my brother spoke up. Not a nickname she likes, just FYI. The thing is, said Sasha slowly, it's not safe, or very smart, for you to go off on your own. He took off his ball cap and twisted it in his hands. His thick, jet-black hair fell forward over his eyes. Sorry about that, Freckles. 59. Not Freckles either, suggested Wit. Or Carrot Top. Have you seen him? He looks way different. Anyway. Okay, I said. We have to find my mother and father. That's our mission, I stated very clearly. Family first. Celia stepped closer to me and put out her hand. I felt a wispy breeze touch my hair and saw the sympathy in her eyes. Wisty, just listen, please. Sasha sighed, then gestured at everything around us. Look at this messed up place. This is what most of the city looks like. The New Order is taking over worthy communities and shaping everything in its image. The rest, they're just razing, like totally out of existence. Yeah, and I'm all sad about that too. It's awful, I get it, but what's that got to do with our mom and dad? Read my lips, friend. Things are bad all over, he continued. I don't have any idea where your parents might be held, or even if they're alive. The last word was a whisper. I stared at him, feeling the blood drain from my face. Celia, you saved us. If you could get us out of prison, why can't you help us find our parents? They're alive, I'm sure of it. Wit stared at Celia, clearly agreeing that I was onto something. A pained expression came over her face, but she didn't respond to what I'd said. Look, said Sasha, glancing awkwardly at Celia. I couldn't read his meaning. Let's just get to safety. We can figure out what your next steps when we're in Freeland. Freeland? I don't know. I'd had enough of the sympathy game. Folding my arms across my chest, I stomped my foot like that 2-year-old in the shopping mall. I'm not moving 1 inch until someone gives me a satisfactory answer. Wisty, Celia hissed with urgency. It's really dangerous here. There's stuff worse than bombs, if you can imagine something more terrible than being blown up. We don't know where your parents are yet, and you can't save them anyway, if you're dead. Chapter 60. Wit. 177. Stop right where you are, kids. Let me see some ID. Now. There are about a dozen of them. Make that 11. All males, probably late teens to mid-20s. Big boys with big muscles. I stepped forward. Mind if I ask who you are before we show you anything? This is a dangerous part of town, you know. The spokesman for the muscled boys looked to be in his early 20s. He was standing on the balls of his feet, ready to start some trouble, I figured. You should know who we are, New Order, the Citizen Patrol. We're looking for strays and wanteds. Need IDs from all of you. That's the law, friend. Wisty had moved up alongside me. Maybe we'd like to see your IDs, she said. Friend. Meanwhile, a crowd of maybe 50 or 60 citizens was forming. Not good. Let me take care of this, I said, okay? Wisty shrugged. Sure. Why don't we all just walk away and stay friends, I said to the group leader. I was hoping to continue talking, but he already had a metal baton out. The crowd was still growing and getting noisy. Citizen Patrol my butt, more like the aspiring dictator's after-school club, said Wisty ever the diplomat. Sorry. Look at you overgrown goons. Pathetic. Well, that put them over the top, and they attacked. All 11 of them, batons flailing, the crowd of neighborhood creeps cheering them on. My turn, I held Wisty off. I can do this. I can see that, she said. Wow, Whitford. What she was seeing was that the Citizen Patrol seemed to be moving in slow motion. But actually, they weren't. I was just moving very, very fast. I felt like I could do this, and I was right. The lead guy's baton was cocked back, and I snatched it right out of his hand, and then kicked his legs out from under him. I hit him with a roundhouse punch as he was falling to the sidewalk. I was moving so fast that I was a blur. I took away all their batons and threw the sticks into the sewer, then knocked them down one by one, except for a beautiful twofer. What? Oh, okay. Finally, the gang members were sprawled on the ground, moaning and groaning. Now let's see those IDs. I stood over them and roared, but Sasha was already pulling me away, hurrying all of us up the street and around the nearest corner. That was very cool, he said. I needed the practice, and I think maybe I could actually get into this wizard thing. Meanwhile, Celia was on my arm, light as could be. That was incredible, Wit. Loved it. You definitely show potential, Wisty said, and grinned. And for that instant, that second, it was like everything was back to the way it was supposed to be. The kind of life I'd always thought I'd have. But just for that moment. One more. 61, Wisty. After Wit's demonstration of his latest skill set, Sasha led us down a mostly deserted street toward a building with a facade pockmarked by bullet holes and missile strikes. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Had all this happened while we were at the hospital? Time felt so distorted. Man, I was hoping I'd be gone long enough for this to stop. All the bombing. Sasha shook his head. What do you mean? I asked. Sasha shrugged. I was in the Shadowland for a couple of hours. Wit frowned. Why would that be long enough for the New Order to come to their senses and stop bombing? Sasha looked at me and Wit in surprise. You don't know? Celia? I didn't get a chance to explain everything, Celia said. We were busy escaping, you know. What don't we know? I asked. What else? Lots. For one thing, time is different in the Shadowland, said Sasha, continuing to walk very fast. In this case, it looks to me like I was probably gone about a month or so. It's not always consistent, like Narnia. Depends on the portal you have to use. Once I came back and it was earlier that same morning. Wit and I stared at each other. We had no way of knowing how much time had passed since we had been captured. We had so many questions. Apparently the weasel did too. So can we step back in time to a day when Wisty actually takes a bath? Her hair is practically turning into dreadlocks. Get off of me, you ingrate, I said, peeling him away from my neck and plopping him on Pfeffer's back instead. Pfeffer, you're a kinder soul than me. Meet your new best friend. Pfeffer barked good-naturedly and wagged her tail. Could she have ever been a hellhound? Then Sasha stopped and pointed. Here we go. Home sweet rebel-strewn home. This is where a bunch of us are hanging. Kind of a mingus, but we've got it fixed up pretty good. I don't know what that means. I think it's a slang word in this book. Anyway. I looked up and read the broken fluorescent sign dangling from some wires for the most amazing luxury department store in the whole world. I'd never been able to afford to even walk through these doors. Garfunkels? I like Simon. Anyway, I said breathlessly, we're going to live here? For a moment, I felt like a queen. Okay. That one ended up being the longer of the two, which I guess is kind of okay. Yeah. All that stuff I said, don't worry too much about it. If anything happens, or if anything important happens, or I have good news, I'll be sure to tell you guys. Wish me luck, and until next time, goodbye everybody. I might have to do this more often. Actually, I have my webcam. It's sitting on top of a shoebox that I still have because I keep a lot of stuff in case I need it for moving. Anyway, bye.